Tim, welcome to Watch What, and thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Zenith El Primero Stratos Spindrift, 45 millimeters in black PVD stainless steel. You can see this El Primero Stratos Spindrift on our website, watchyouvant.com. And if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. Now you can see on my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference. The Stratos Spindrift is a massive watch. Heftier than the lightweight, which is superficially similar in some respects. That one is in carbon fiber and ceramized aluminum. This one, entirely in steel, has quite a bit more substance. Now it's also a little bit thicker, being about 14.5 millimeters thick, but it is the same 53 millimeters from lug to lug, so these Zenith 45 millimeter cases wear with a lot of shoulder. That is to say, if you have a smaller wrist that's narrow from side to side, this watch might be a challenging fit, but you can't ask for more wrist presence if you're looking for that modern, oversized sports watch aesthetic. This one has visual impact. Now, it does use the same type of strap, a combination of Nomex textile, that's the material used in racing suits, and a nice burly natural rubber underside. It's comfortable and it's durable and it's ready to jump right into the water. Now you can see 100-meter water resistant. This watch is an outstanding all-around sports reference with a screw-down crown and a unidirectional dive bezel. You can see a nice low-profile twin trigger clasp. This is very similar to the model used on the lightweight. You can see it's beautifully finished, faceted and chamfered on the inside, and with twin trigger release it maintains the aesthetic of a pin buckle, so nice and elegant, but the twin trigger gives you that added measure of security when the watch is closed and on your wrist. You don't have to worry about this one popping open like a friction fit. Now you can see the El Primero movement here. It's a caliber 400, but with the traditional finishing elements missing on the El Primero lightweight. Technically this one's called the caliber 4061, so it's a traditional caliber 400 with a blackened rotor and an open heart escapement, and that's key to understanding this watch. It's the combination of bold sports-inspired proportions and character with the open, beating, visible heart of the Zenith El Primero movement that is key to understanding the appeal of this watch. Now, former Zenith CEO and style director Terry Natoff made a lot of controversial moves during his time at the helm. One of his undoubted successes, and one that endures to this day not just in the Zenith lineup, but throughout watchmaking, is the open escapement, a dial that allows you to look into the movement, gives you 90% of the impact of a tourbillon without the expense, cost, and maintenance concerns. Now you can see one of the highlights of the open escapement 10 years after the dawn of the Natoff era is the inclusion of silicon components, not just functional in that they operate unlubricated, and you can see the pallet and escape wheel right there. Note the inset Zenith star pattern on the escape wheel. But having that open escapement with the silicon components allows you to visually appreciate the technological innovation. You can see they have almost a purplish blue tinge to them, and they really stand out against the metallic elements of the traditional movement. Very attractive. The key to the 4061 as opposed to the caliber 400 is that all of the bridge work has been pared down and skeletonized so that not only do you have a view of the escapement through the dial, but you have an unencumbered view of the escapement. This is one you can appreciate and show off to friends without having to take the watch off your wrist and allow the table to handle it, so to speak, at dinner. Now, the other elements that set the Spindrift apart are the all-black aesthetic of the dial, the subtle use of blued screws in the assembly of the aperture surround that frames the open escapement, and the depth of the dial, which features inset subregisters as well as a sail sport themed rehaut that gives the watch a lot of depth. Now when you start up the classical El Primero chronograph, still a column wheel, still crisp. It's the traditional way of making a watch. You can see, we get the column wheel into focus here. You can see as you cycle the functions of the watch, the column wheel through the start and stop right there under my thumb is crisper, it's more difficult to make, it's more difficult to tune, and it represents watchmaking in the old school fashion. It's the way the El Primero was designed in 1969, and it remains one of the finest in terms of tactile feel and function to this day. Now another element of the El Primero that hasn't changed since '69 is the high beat. While we have new components in the escapement, it still operates at 5 Hz or a distinctive 10 beats per second, so you can see the smoother sweep of the chronograph seconds hand. Even compared to a modern 4 Hz watch, the watch is going to be just a little bit smoother, a little bit more fluid around the dial. What it also has is a distinctive voice. If you hold it up to the ear, it has a high-speed cadence that's completely different from almost anything else that's out there. Now you can see that Zenith has gone whole hog with the use of high-tech imagery here, the silicon in the open escapement, the blacked out look, the Spindrift logo at 12 o'clock, and the carbon fiber woven dial base. Now this one is a steel watch, so it's heftier than the lightweight, but in tribute to the Maxi Catamaran, a racing record setter that serves as the namesake for this model, Zenith has used that distinctive carbon weave to give this watch almost a holographic effect. As light moves over the dial, the weave seems to migrate, it seems to almost fluctuate in its scale and intensity, and the applied elements over it only accentuate that effect. This is a beautiful and compelling watch. Now moving to the back of the watch, first let's take a look at the bezel. You can see that this one is unidirectional rotating, so I want to emphasize, technically this watch with a loomed unidirectional bezel and 100-meter water resistance, constant seconds indicator, does meet the definition of a dive watch, so you're good to go in that respect. And completing the cycle, we get back to the movement. Now here you can see, unlike the lightweight, this one's finished in a much more traditional Zenith fashion. 282 parts, 31 jewels. The distinctions that set the wheels, the bridges, the plates, the assembly screws, and the adjustment screws apart are all intact here. You still have the blackened and skeletonized El Primero Spindrift rotor from the lightweight, but what you have here is all the color contrast that comes with the traditional El Primero. Now I'm going to move the winding rotor so you can see the bridge work. Here's what's distinctive about Zenith. They like to use this perlage engine turning pattern on bridges as opposed to the base plate itself. So while you can see it on the cock of the balance and the bridge of the winding system, the actual base of the movement is actually unadorned. You can also see the combination of blued and polished screw heads. The blued screws are used for adjusting various components of the base movement and the chronograph. So for adjusting the performance of the watch, that's your cue to the watchmaker that the screw has a role in adjustment. And for assembling the watch, a polished screw indicates to the watchmaker that that screw merely holds a fixture in place. It's also beautiful to behold the combination of violet pivot jewels, cobalt adjusting screws, polished assembly screws, golden wheels, and of course the perlage and sandblasted and straight radial and circular grained elements add to the texture and visual diversity of this movement. Not every movement is beautiful. Although we live in an era when every watch seems to have a display case back, not every movement really warrants it. The El Primero is a glorious exception, and for good measure, Zenith gives you the skeletonized rotor so you can see even those elements that are partially obscured by the automatic winding system. Well done, front and back. Again, part of the huge appeal of the Stratos in this case is the open escapement, the ability to see that beautiful beating heart through the dial. 90% of the impact of a tourbillon, like I said, without any of the durability and maintenance concerns. You can see this progressive, impressive, oversized, and quite honestly, classical, beautifully built, beautifully engineered, exuberant Zenith Spindrift, part of the Stratos line, on our website, watchyouwant.com. It's the Zenith El Primero Stratos Spindrift, PVD 45mm steel. See it and, if you like, sail it home on our website, watchyouwant.com.